record. Okay. Hey, y'all, welcome. I'm going to get right back into the presentation. Why New Year's resolutions don't stick and what to do about it. So I was just talking a little bit about me, some of the transformations I've been through. The biggest one, which was directly a result, put this back in presentation mode. Here we go. Directly a result of the coach training that Jane, who's on this call, and I are in. Part of what was included with that was a whole bunch of material. The lady who is the founder of the Life Coach School started off as a weight loss coach. And so there was a lot of information in there about weight coaching, how to manage your mind as a way to manage weight. And so I say accidentally, that's kind of a joke. I was trying to lose weight, but I had no hopes that it would be this effective. And as of today, I'm a medium, and I don't think of myself, not talking about like, oh, psychic, but I'm a extra large girl who wants to be a large girl. I don't think I've been a medium person since college. Now the mediums now might not be the same dimensions as the mediums then, but still, see, vanity sizing and all, it's still a big change. So tiny bit more about me and then we'll move on. Why am I so interested in this topic? So I was mentioning this earlier. My journey as a coach started 3 years ago. And my intention was, right, I'd gone through this big financial transformation. I know, like, you look at all the statistics, a lot of Americans have problems with money. And I thought, well, I've been through this. I want to help people. If this is a big problem and I know something about it, I can help. This is something I can do on the side while we run our coach consulting business. And so I thought being a coach was like telling people what to do. I was really excited about that. And there's no standards or regulations for coaching. So a coach is kind of whatever that person does. But the way I was doing it, it turns out it was not super effective. People don't love being bossed around. Not every idea that I have for their life is a good one. And so that was, sort of one level of that is making sure people thought the advice was good for them and that there was buy-in. But sort of the next problem that I found was there were people who wanted to do something and could not get themselves to do it. And that's where I got really fascinated. Like I was saying at the beginning, before we started recording, Lisa Peterson, I was in a presentation and she talked about this idea of sometimes you know what to do and you're willing to do it and you just don't. And it's like, what's up with that? So, then we start getting into the woo-woo very quickly because we go from limiting beliefs and money blocks, which sounds like kind of rational and logical, into like chakras and theta healing and, tarot card reading and all of these different tools that I now have to help people get themselves to do what they want to do. So my opinion, and I'm with you, Spanky, I generally don't do New Year's resolutions because I'm like, it's kind of like BS and made up. Valerie and I have had a lot of conversations about this too, because she's definitely on like team holidays. And, I think there's something to be said for like having markers in the year that we're going to focus on this or we're going to celebrate that. But I just didn't grow up in a really big holiday family. Like my parents' opinion of like Mother's Day and Father's Day was that it was like a made up holiday just to sell more greeting cards. So I'm not big into like if the change over a year is meaningful for you and you want to use it as a place of I'm stopping 2020, I'm doing 2021 and use it as like a marker for self-reflection, I'm all about that. But if you're just like, well, it's January, I guess I'll try to lose weight again, like I'm not really into that. But I think the main reasons, first would be sort of that they're arbitrary if you don't really think of New Year's as a marker, if you're just doing it because that's what all the cool kids are doing. But I think the three main reasons New Year's resolutions generally don't, and again, if you're watching this and it works for you, that's awesome. Keep doing what you're doing. Hopefully some of the tips will help. But for most people, they don't work. They're just too broad and too vague, right? It's like, I want to lose some weight. Okay, well, I want a pony, but, I haven't heard any clip clop in the driveway, right? So having things that are so broad and so vague and often in a lot of different areas, right? I want to lose weight and I want to get rich, and I want to start a business, and I want to learn fencing, and I want to write like all these goals in all these areas that are all just super vague. So that's kind of the first problem. The second problem is a lot of times the action plan is completely unrealistic. We talk a lot in the life coach school about like who you are and this sort of ideal self, who you want to be. Um, the person you want to be may be somebody that runs 5 miles a day every day, no matter what's going on. The person you are is somebody that like doesn't even walk to the mailbox and pick up your mail at the end of the driveway as you're driving home. That's a big gap. So you kind of have to take, some ladder thoughts, some in between steps, some baby steps to make those plans more realistic to have better success. And the third, and this is the one that really fascinates me, is this subconscious sabotage where what your conscious mind wants and what your subconscious mind is working on are two different things. So we'll get more into all of those.
Lisa, I don't mean to
Oh,
interrupt, but
yeah.
I can't see your slides, so I don't know
Oh,
if we're
no.
supposed to, but I want to let you know now before we get too far ahead.
Oh,
Yeah, I
thank
can't see
you.
them either.
Okay.
I can't see your slide either.
Oh, so I've just
Nope,
been like
Can't either.
Yeah, you
recording
restarted and I've just been listening to you talk and no
Dude,
slides have come up at
I
all.
made really pretty pictures,
That's why I figured I'd say something.
right? Like here's a really good headshot.
There we
And then
go. Yay.
here's like a sad lady whose New Year's resolutions aren't working. All right, and let me put it in SlideShare. Dude, it's good
Thank
this
you.
is not like a how to do PowerPoint or how to do Zoom presentation. All right, so thank you. What to do about it? First thing is constraint, and this is a concept that they teach at the life coach school. Makes a lot of sense to me. Instead of saying, well, I've got like 5 big goals and I'm going to work on one until it gets hard, and then I'm going to drop that, and then I'm going to work on something else until I get frustrated. Then I'm going to work on something else until I get bored, right? They say pick one thing and stick with it until you get results, which makes a lot of sense, right? Because your brain wants to jump around, it wants to go for whatever's easiest. But when you constrain and you pick, like, I'm going to work on this one area, and then when I start to see traction with right, that difference between who I am and who I want to be, I think, like, for example, on the debt journey, when you get to a point where you're just the kind of person who spends less than you make, takes the excess and puts it toward your debt, and you're like in the groove of it, then you can switch and do something else while that's still ongoing. It doesn't take as much focus once it's just who you are. But when you're in the first, throes of that, when you're in the drama of like, but they have the sparkly pillows at Target that are one way when you rub them this way and different color when you rub them that way, right? Like you're not going to be able to keep yourself on track for that and not eat the cookie and, do all the other 47 things. So constraint, pick one area and really, really focus on it. Tiny habits. Valerie, if that's you pinging my phone, I didn't put it close to me, so you'll have to just interrupt me again.
No, not me.
Okay.
Another secret admirer that you have.
That would be my husband.
Okay.
Although he knows, so it's probably not him either, but whoever it is, it can wait. I just was worried there was some other kind of tech fail. So, all right. So constraint. Point number 2 is tiny habits. I got somebody who wants in. Tiny habits. And this is not a concept I invented. This is a whole book. Can y'all see this? Or is it just showing the slides now?
Are you holding up Tiny Habits?
Yeah. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yay. This is a really, I can't see myself, but this is a really, really good book. The author is BJ Fogg, and he is founded the Behavior Design Lab at Stanford University. So, and you notice it says teaches industry innovators how human behavior really works. So guys like this is a whole separate rant, but guys like this are the one teaching the people like at Facebook and Instagram how to capture your attention. So this is a guy who knows how human behavior works. And his points, I think I have a slide on this. Let me go back to screen share. Share. Right, I do. So here's my slide on constraint, pick one thing to focus on first. Don't switch until you get into the swing of it. And then there's a swing in the picture. Very clever. Oh, I'm back on, dude. Here we go. All right. Tiny habits. And the first piece of this is to make it tiny. So instead of, I'm going to run 5 miles a day, how about in the morning before I shower, I'm going to walk out to the mailbox. Or when I get home at night, I'll walk to the mailbox and get the mail. The example that he gives, he had this goal of flossing his teeth, but he just couldn't like make himself do it. So he says, all right, my goal is going to be, I'm just going to floss like one tooth. And it was small enough that he was able to get himself to do it. But if he didn't feel like flossing all of his teeth, he could be like, whatever, it's still a win. I did what I said I was going to do. And most of the time, if you've already gotten the floss out and you've gotten kind of back in there, you'll floss the rest of them. But by making it so tiny, it reduces the resistance to it. So you're much more likely to actually do what you want to do if you start with just a tiny little behavior. Another example, and I would only do this if you're working from home and can do this in a sanitary place, but he talks about every time, this is actually the next one, giving yourself a prompt, right? So it's great to have a tiny habit, but if you're like, oh, I was going to do push-ups today and I totally forgot, it's probably not going to work. So what he does working from home, every time he flushes the toilet, then he'll go in the next room and do 2 push-ups. 2 push-ups, tiny habit, the prompt, every time I flush the toilet. With the toothbrushing, it was like, when I finish brushing my teeth, then I'll floss 1 tooth. My husband, I've noticed, actually does this at the end of the shower, just to overshare. At the end of his shower, he always does like some wall push-ups and some stretches. And he's got that prompt of, when I finish my shower, then I'll do some stretches. And it's enough to kind of get him in the habit to doing it. The third one that really stood out to me from the Tiny Habits book was to celebrate after. And this for sure is not the way that I'm wired. I'm not like a celebrate person. I'm not a party person. But there's a lot of science behind it, that a lot of what prompts our behavior and a lot of what helps us remember things is dopamine. And so even if it's as little as like, yay, I flossed my teeth, right? It can be little, it can be goofy, but especially if you get the feeling of it. If you're like, yes, nailed it, like, yay, I did it, proud of myself. That little celebration can be enough to give you that little pop of dopamine, right? Like, this is again how a lot of the social media stuff works, is you post something clever and then everybody's out there like. You're like, yeah, give me the happy chemicals. And it helps lock in that behavior. So some of this stuff that they're using to get us all addicted to social media, we can use on ourselves. And the big reason behind the celebrate after piece, this is a quote that I have from the book, is people change best by feeling good, not by feeling bad. And again, this lines up with a lot of what is taught in the life coach school, that you can't like hate yourself to skinny. You'd be like, you suck. You are so fat. You should lose weight. You're like, now I feel bad. You know what would make me feel better? Ice cream.
That's what me talking to myself all the time.
Yeah, man, that's not good for you. I think it's human and natural, but it's actually, right, what works is exactly the opposite of that, of like, you know what? I love myself. I'm going to give myself some vegetables because they're full of nutrients. And again, not to overshare, but it always helps me, like in the bathroom department. We're talking way too much about the bathroom. Let me move on. But right, like, I'm going to do this because I love myself and I want my body to be healthy, instead of like, you suck. And it's like, now I'm sad. What would make me feel better? A Snickers. All right. So the third piece of this is sort of the awareness and the mindset piece. We have this, whether you want to call it evolution or, the little angel and the little devil, regardless of how you want to believe we got there, I think most of us recognize, like, a lot of times we're at war with ourselves. We have this one part of our brain that wants to keep us safe, wants to make sure we don't run out of calories, wants to sort of keep us in the cave and so is very risk adverse. And then we have, like the new tech, we have the prefrontal cortex, we have the more evolved part of the brain. And this is the part of the brain that can dream and plan and fantasize. So this is the part of the brain that's like, I want to look good in my bikini at the beach this year. And then the primitive part of the brain is like, I need some cookies because I feel sad. Right? So this is where that comes from. And so a lot of it is just getting awareness on the thinking and kind of saying like, okay, primitive brain, like I understand you're afraid we're going to run out of food. You want me to eat the cookies because it's, source of high concentrated calories, but we're doing something different now. And so a lot of it's just kind of understanding like, this is just how humans are wired. I'm not bad. I'm not weak. This is actually going on in everybody else's head. They're just not telling me because they're embarrassed too. So, kind of that awareness about what's messing you up, why it's happening, that it's normal and natural, but that you can just tell that primitive part of the brain, right? It's okay. We're going to be okay. And we're going to go with the plan that we already made instead of what we're feeling in the instant. And part of that, this is not really on the slides, but just to kind of throw it in there, part of that is learning to sort of feel that urge, sit with the urge, like I have the urge for some cookies. Okay, it's gone. I'm gonna go do something else. But realizing, right, just because you have an urge doesn't mean that you have to do what the urge tells you to do. So another thing that can mess you up, which I talked about earlier, are these subconscious beliefs that block you from taking action. So if you're like, well, I'd really like to build wealth and get rich and be able to retire one day, but I can remember my dad talking about we're the kind of people that blah 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 blah. And especially with money, right? Like if you have weird ideas about the opposite sex, when you go out as an adult and you start dating and you kind of come up against other people's ideas about how people are, you get that reality check. You get that moment of like, oh, I guess what I was raised with is not what everybody else was raised with. With money, because it's really like the last taboo. We'll talk about sex before we'll talk about money. With money, you never really have that experience of like, oh, I have some ideas that aren't serving me. I wonder what other people's ideas about money are. I wonder how they think about it. We never talk about it. So, a lot of the beliefs we have about money are things we picked up as kids that we don't even actually consciously agree with anymore, right? Like maybe it was a good idea in 1950 something when your dad was growing up, but it's not applicable anymore. Maybe your family always was the kind of people that, we're working class people. We don't do the investing stuff. That's for rich people and rich people are bad. Maybe that really was the case, but times have changed. They got a pension, so they didn't have to learn about investing. Most of us these days are not getting a pension. So those subconscious beliefs that you've never questioned, especially around money, can really block you from taking the action that your conscious mind wants you to take because it would be inconsistent with who your subconscious mind believes you to be. Right. So and then this third one, this is getting a little woo. I was having a conversation with somebody about this today. There are a lot of books that will kind of say, right, it makes sense to me that if I have a belief that I'm this kind of person, then I am unlikely to take the actions that would lead me to being that kind of person. I can get into that. That makes sense. But there's also this whole camp that says, like, even if you're taking the right actions, if your belief is not compatible with your result, like magic, the universe, whatever, will like stop it from happening. Right. And the side is also that's maybe more easier to um, use as an example. There are certainly people that we all know who can do like everything right and they're just charmed, right? They can do everything right and they get away with it. Um, Another example of this kind of like woo woo thing, but that actually does happen in real life. How many times have you thought about a person, and then all of a sudden, boom, you get a text from them, and you're like, dude, you must have heard me thinking about you. So, again, for me, the jury's kind of still out. I'm definitely team like logical, rational. That's what I'm most comfortable with. But I do think there's an element of magic here that I am exploring, and kind of think there might be something to it. I don't think it replaces doing what you need to do, but I think sometimes that can have an effect. All right, so speaking of weird stuff, I would love to take y'all through an exercise around limiting beliefs to help you see if you have some of the common limiting beliefs that might be getting in your way. And before I do this, anytime I do anything that like might be magic, I always like to come up with a logical, rational reason why it works so that I can feel comfortable with it. And then like maybe it's magic, maybe it's not, but I've at least got a story as to why it makes sense. So what we're going to do is muscle test beliefs. And the idea is that if something is true for you, you will naturally kind of go towards it. And if it's not true, you will go away from it. And again, that sounds like magic. That sounds woo-woo. That's probably not true, except, you think about a little amoeba in a petri dish. If it finds something that it thinks is good, that maybe is food, it's naturally going to go towards it. If it finds something that it thinks is bad and dangerous, it's naturally going to back away from it. If you have pets, you have to probably spell the word W-A-L-K in your house, because if the dog thinks something good is happening, he's like excited, leaning forward, raring to go. If he realizes that he's been tricked into going to the vet, right, it's going to be this pulling away, this hesitancy. So I think we have the same thing that's just natural in biological organisms, and we can use this to kind of uncover what our limiting beliefs are. So that's kind of what we're going to do and why I think it works. To actually do this, what I want y'all to do is go ahead and stand up. I'm not going to make you do anything really weird, and you can do it off camera, but go ahead and stand up and then close your eyes. I can see nobody has moved. You don't have to participate, but if you would like to, please go ahead. There you go. Like I can see y'all if you're on camera. Not mandatory, but extra benefit if you participate. Go ahead, stand up, and then you want to close your eyes, because what I have been taught is that helps you connect more with the subconscious. If you do it with your eyes open, you'll get what's true and false for you on a conscious level, but that's not really helpful because you already know that. So stand up, take a deep breath, and close your eyes, kind of shake out your shoulders, get your feet shoulder width apart, really square, your weight balanced. Another deep breath, relax, eyes closed, and then say out loud, show me my yes. And you should lean just a little bit forward. If you don't move at all, again, relax, roll with it. You don't have to be where anybody can see you. And then say out loud, show me my no. And you should lean back just a little bit. If this doesn't work for you, then make a free appointment on my website. I will help you. If you don't move at all, or if you move the wrong way, it's usually because you're dehydrated, which most of us are nowadays. So you can always like get a glass of water and try this again on your own later. But so you've done show me my yes, show me my no. One more test you can do is say out loud with your eyes shut, my name is, and then say your name. And you should sway forward just a little bit. So if you've got this working for you, I want you to say out loud, I'm the kind of person who loses weight easily. And you should get a yes or no. And then out loud with your eyes shut, I'm the kind of person who can stick to an eating plan. I'm the kind of person that will exercise when I say I'll exercise. I'm the kind of person who has the ability to save money. I'm the kind of person who is on track for retirement. I'm the kind of person who can achieve my business goals. I'm really good at earning money. Let me think another one. I can be rich. Money is the root of all evil. All right, I think y'all probably kind of got the idea, so you can go ahead and sit back down.
On a bunch of them, I moved forward, and on a bunch of them, I moved back, but also on a bunch of them, I just sat there. I didn't move at
Ah.
all. It was weird. But you're right. It's kind of cool and magic. That was interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And again, right, it kind of makes sense once you get the hang of it. And this is a way that you can use to test, right? So if you think money is the root of all evil and you're trying to run a business and get paid, how's that going to go for you? Probably not great. If you think you're not the kind of person that's going to stick to an eating plan and you started a new diet January 1st, like you kind of already had decided it wasn't going to work. So if that didn't work for you, or if you got stuck, or if you were alarmed by the answers that you got, you can go to my website, lisaduke.net/schedule. I may have put a form out there. If I do, just put like not applicable free appointment. And I will take you through some of these, make sure we get it working so that you can test things on your own. And of course, I don't have to be here. You can do that anytime on your own. So they say there's sort of three things. Well, I guess the biggest thing that's necessary to be successful, right? We talked about constraining down to one area, tiny habits, make sure that you give yourself a prompt for the activity, that it's something that's reasonably easy to do, that you celebrate it after to kind of lock it in. But if you've got some of these subconscious limiting beliefs, there are a lot of ways to change things on your own, journaling, affirmations, a lot of things like that can help you. If you would like help, then I can help you. Coaching the way that I am doing it now is really about helping you see your mind and helping you see how your thought drove your action, led to your result, which is a little depressing at first because it's like, wait, is everything my fault? But the good news is if things are being driven by your thoughts, whether they're conscious or subconscious, then you have some agency and some control over what you think. So the idea of coaching is it's kind of holding up a mirror, helping you see, well, what actually do I believe? How is that manifesting? And then to make a different choice and do something different. That's, again, if you're logical, rational, you've got like that IT background, like I have, this is going to appeal to you because it's just like a formula, right? It's like A plus B plus C equals D. There's nothing woo woo about it. If you like the woo woo stuff and you want to go a little bit further, I've also been trained in theta healing. And I have to say, it is the most effective thing that I've ever seen, but it's kind of weird, right? Like, there's a lot of like closing your eyes and visualizing. We're probably going to talk about your childhood. So when clients come to me, if they don't know about either of these and they don't have a preference, I always start with coaching because that'll get you, I think 85% of where you want to go. Where the theta healing becomes really effective is when you're just hung up on something and you just can't like work through it rationally. And that's where the theta healing comes in. And they say that beliefs come from 4 different levels, right? There's like the conscious beliefs that you have. There's I'm probably going to mess these up because I don't have it in front of me, but there's things that you believe because what's happened to you in your life. There's things that have been passed down through the family, usually consciously, but that can be unconscious as well. There are things that are in the collective consciousness, right? That we just sort of all believe. We all believe like, well, of course, dealing with dinner is the woman's job, unless you're grilling, in which case it's the man's job. Right? Like some of these just arbitrary things. So helping you change some of those that are really sticky. So if you're open to doing that I can help with. And I have had some client results by this point. Most of these are around money because that has been my primary focus. But of course, this works on every area. I had a client who was convinced there was no way for her to grow her business. She's a hairdresser. So, right, if you want more money, all you can do is raise your prices or you can do more appointments. She didn't want to raise her prices because she was really comfortable with where they are. She'd already done that. She didn't want to take on more appointments because she was a mom and she liked her balance. And she was like, I'm just stuck. There's absolutely nothing I can do with money. Well, when we started kind of digging through it, eliminating some of the limiting beliefs, there were opportunities that she knew about that she like couldn't even see. So we found there actually was an opportunity for her to make 900 bucks a month, no extra appointments, not raising her rates, but she had said no to it because it kind of didn't fit with some other beliefs that she had. So when we got rid of those other beliefs, then she was like, "Oh, I actually can do that." Another one, this was really crazy. This was a lady that I was working with. And I don't really do health coaching, but it was part of a training program, and that was included in the training. And she was actually a cancer patient, but in the course of the conversation, what came up was she had this money pattern in her life. 3 times she'd gotten in a relationship with a man, a long-term relationship. The relationship ended badly, and the man took all the money, some of it illegally. And that's unusual to have that happen once, things happen. To have it happen with every guy you're in a major relationship with, there's probably something going on. So we like dug into it, dug into it, dug into it, and we started talking about some things that had happened to her dad. When she was growing up, her dad had left the family and took the money with him. And she said, when he left, he took everything. And I was like, interesting. And what has happened with every guy, major guy in your life since then. So this was like huge breakthrough. On a less woo-woo angle, this is a client of mine who is an IT consultant. We've done no theta healing, honestly, very little coaching. It's more just mostly what I've done is just kind of sounding board for him because I've had such relevant experience. And I was shocked. We've only had about 4 appointments, and he said, because I felt like we were still getting started, like we hadn't really done it yet. Jane and I have had conversations about this guy. I'm like, I feel like I haven't done it yet. Like we've talked a couple of times, but I haven't really given him the full coach thing. How do I get it in there? And he told me the other day, he's like, since we started, my gross revenue is up 40%, which is impressive. But then, if you spend more than that, that doesn't really help you. But he said the net was up as well. So he was earning more because of some of the work we had done. And he was keeping more of it home, which was really a big deal for him because he had a pattern of just trying to solve everything by spending money, which was good for me because that's why he hired me. But he just kept wanting to hire people. I'm like, you can try it if you want, but we did that and lost 10 grand. We did that and nothing came out of it. So, it's the practical and the coaching and the theta healing, the whole spectrum. So I do think it's really important to invest in your mind. Most of us invest in our minds in college, and then we immediately go and do something where we may or may not use our degree. But either way, unless we go back to school, we're like, well, I'm glad investing in your mind is done. But I think it makes a lot of sense, right? If your brain is filtering what you're seeing and what you're aware of, and if your brain is unconsciously driving your reactions and how you show up in the world and what you're doing, then there's really nothing more valuable that you can invest in than your mind and getting some of these beliefs clear. And I will say, and I heard somebody say this the other day, and I thought it was really good because even if you hire a mentor or a coach, at the end of the day, I think the client is always responsible for their own results, right? Somebody can tell you what to do, but if you don't do it, it won't help. We could clear a whole bunch of beliefs, and if we don't find the one that's in the way, it may or may not help. But it is so valuable, that process of getting that understanding of more awareness over your thoughts and more understanding about how your thoughts are driving your results. Even if you just work for a coach with a brief period of time, if they're introducing the concepts and then you can pick up some of that and run with it, it is so, so valuable. So you might, I know that I've started coaching for one thing and ended up on a separate topic, but it just raises up the whole level of your whole life. You start to, right, what we were saying with the constraint, you focus on one area, but then things pop up otherwise. So if you are looking for free stuff, I do have a Facebook group, lisaduke.net/money club. Historically, it's been very focused on just financial stuff. I have to decide how I'm going to handle that as I expand out my focus. And it historically, to be honest, has been mostly like me talking. But one of my goals for this year is to get more conversation. And it's a little tricky, right? Because a lot of times I talked about how we have this taboo around money. So I understand not everybody wants to like air their dirty laundry, but as much as we can, we want to get the conversation going, get people connecting with each other, right? If you've got a business, there might be clients in the group. If you're looking for a job, there might be people with job openings in the companies in their group. The more we can get that going, the more valuable it will be. So that's out there, and that is free as well. And then there's all my contact information. I'll leave that up for just a second, and then I will stop sharing. All right, so let me see how we're doing on time. We got a couple of minutes. Does anybody have maybe some tips about how to achieve goals that I didn't address that you think would be helpful for other people in the group, or questions, anything that you want to share or to ask? You can just unmute yourself and shout.
Um, I quit smoking many, many years ago. And everybody that I know said, oh, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. And while I admit it was very difficult, the thing that allowed me to quit was I focused on, I was a non-smoker. So I started believing that I was a non-smoker. I don't smoke.
Wow.
And there was no tapering off. There was no, oh, I'll have, I'll only have 2 today, or I'll only have 1, or whatever that. And there was no patches. There was none of that. It was entirely mindset. It was just like one day I was like, you know what? I'm not a smoker. I don't smoke. And that was it, done. And I would get cravings, but I'd be like, yeah, I don't smoke. And so I was able to do that. And so it was all mindset. That was the only thing that allowed me to succeed, because I had tried to quit many, 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 many times before. But until I did that mindset change and decided to myself, told myself, I don't smoke, I'm not a smoker. It's not even, I'm an ex-smoker. It's not, I don't smoke.
Wow.
Until I did that mentally, didn't work. And once I did that mentally, I was done. I don't smoke.
So how did you, did something happen that made you make that decision? Because again, you said you tried in the past. So what was was there some sort of catalyst that why it worked this time and not before?
I didn't want to, but it was, the truth is I really liked to smoke. There's no question about it. I really, really dug it. But the thing that bothered me is I knew that I stunk. Like, you go have 1 cigarette and you sorry.
Yeah.
F word, sorry. And you, gosh darn it,
Yeah.
you really, really stink.
Yeah.
And, anybody who says, no, you don't stink, or you can hide it, or you can do a breath mint. No, you can't, because it's in your clothes, it's in your hair, you stink. And I caught a whiff of a coat that I had been wearing. And I had gotten up in the morning, I'd take a shower, and I went to put on my coat to go outside, and I smelled the coat, and I was like, oh my God, I smell like this all the time.
Wow. Oop, I think we lost Spanky's internet, or maybe my internet. We lost you there. I lost you there for a second. But yeah. And it's funny, right? Because in your mind, in that moment, it went from pleasurable to disgusting. And you were just done.
Yeah, and it was like a switch. It was just that day, done.
Wow, that's crazy. Does anybody else have any good success stories or tips?
I think that's also, by the way, that's how I 30 years ago quit. Same thing. It went from, I did the exact same thing. I didn't smoke that much, but when I smoked, I smelled it on my coat. And same thing, I'm like, oh my God, that's so disgusting.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to smell that way anymore. And the same thing. And you bring up a good point. I like the fact that you put that mantra in your head. You are a non-smoker. You don't smoke, which, again, your head, you automatically are like, oh, I'm a smoker. I'm a smoker. So stopping that belief system, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's crazy. Jane, I know you've been studying this for a while, and I know I definitely didn't cover everything we've had in our training. Do you have any suggestions for people or anything that's worked for you, or maybe something you're working on now?
Well, I'm an author, and I've been writing for intensively for quite some time, but I think to tell people that I'm an author is difficult. So I would just like echo that mindset. Like it's just the making the decision, like this is who I am. It's very much ingesting that into your identity. So I think that's really cool about the smoking.
It's interesting though, because you've definitely told me you're a writer. I don't think it's a secret, but maybe it's like I think you believe you're a writer, but it's like you're almost coming out of the closet, right? It's that nervousness of like, I believe this is my identity, but it's not been my public identity.
Yeah. The identity shift is very important with the mindset, I think.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. So does anybody else have anything they'd like to share or suggest or ask? All right, cool. Well, I'm not going to hold y'all captive. I know it's evening. If this was helpful for you, go ahead, make an appointment. I'd love to talk to you some more. If not, I'd love to invite you to join the Money Club if you're not already in there so you can hear about other things. The next thing that I'm going to have coming off, February, I'm trying to do a lot of one-on-one conversations and connections. But the end of March, I'm trying to look at my calendar on the wall over there. I believe it's going to be the 30th at 3 p.m. I'm doing I haven't quite got the title, but I want to do a conversation. This will be more probably for the women, although not exclusively. A conversation about how our archetypes affect our behavior, especially with money, because that's my thing, but it's not just with money. So we're going to be talking about the archetype of, the martyr or the slave, right? I have to do everything. I have to do it all. I have to do it for free. And then the princess, which is that entitled of, I'm not going to do anything, but I should still get it all for free. And then
Can I bring my daughter in on that one?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well,
she's 15.
If she's interested, she's welcome. But yeah, going back to not being able to make other people do what you tell them to do. Teenagers are a great example of that. But so the sort of the martyr, the princess, and the queen. And then in talking to Jane about this idea, she's like, I don't want to do any of those. I'm going for goddess. I'm like, woo, okay, that might be advanced class next time. But right, like just how that identity, how we
Goddess
bring that.
is not the right word.
Oh,
diva is the correct word.
Diva can have potentially some negative connotations, though, right? If you're hard to work with, no. You have to back it up with the talent. That's what makes it okay, right? So a lot of divas in the circle that Spanky and I run in. They're all male, but I guess divos. Yeah, I'm married to one of those guys.
Guilty.
Yeah. So if you guys are interested in that topic, March 30th at 3 p.m., hang out in the Facebook group, message me if you want a specific like one-on-one consult. I'll give y'all a couple of minutes of your evening back and see y'all later. Thank you so much for coming. This was fun.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Really
Lisa.
appreciate your time.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Y'all.